About Miss Greta Kelly, they asked me. What did I know? I knew she lived a couple blocks away from me. I didn't have much interaction with Miss Kelly, but I would pass her house on my way out of the neighborhood. Now, I tried to think and remember some of the times we might have come in contact with each other. Now, they saw me getting fidgety and antsy, and I having trouble thinking and recalling about what I knew about her, so they started turning up the heat. Now, photos of Miss Kelly with no clothes, stab wounds, and bite marks, even shots of the scorched earth around her house. Even though I really didn't know Miss Kelly well, I would have never wanted to see her that way and treated that way in any manner. It didn't matter for them. They got what they needed. They got their man. Now, for 26 years, I spent time on death row at Parchman Farm. Parchman Farm wasn't just any old prison either. It was a former slave plantation that the state turned into a prison. Can you believe that? The smell of waste was everywhere. They never kept up with the cleaning or making things orderly, especially the blood off the floor from all the fights. From the beginning of my case, the Lowndes County Police Department lacked any credible suspects. They arrested me without any real suspicion. I had several alibi witnesses at the time of the crime. But the trial, the state used an expert arson testimony. The arson expert narrowed the time frame in which they said the murder could have taken place. And with that, guess what? There went my alibi evidence. A representative from the Columbus Fire Department testified that 2 fires set in Miss Kelly's house had smoldered for 4 to 6 hours before the fire department came, which of course, in their minds, gave them plenty of time for me to commit the crime. But I was at my sister's house with several other of my family members, each of which who would have gave the same answer as the last one, that I had the whole story. My sister Patty, or any other of my family members who never were called up to the witness stands. You know what Patty would have said if they called her? She would have said, I never knew Johnny to be violent or to have a mean bone in his body. I never saw anything like that out of Johnny.
O Lord, what manner of man is this? All nations in him are blessed. All things are done by his will. He spoke to the sea and the sea stood still. Now ain't that a witness for my Lord? Ain't that a witness for my Lord? Ain't that a witness for my Lord? Soul is a witness for my Lord.
These lawyers they hired to defend me at first, Lord. One came and then one dropped out. And then the next one came and, well, he didn't seem to have my best interest at hand. He never brought forth any experts about bite marks, and he even stopped filing motions. He almost acted like he forgot about me, like the guards who stripped me down by just my number. 2.5 years, this lawyer would swing me around. So, you know what I wanted to do? And you know what I did? I stood in front of that judge and I told him I wanted to defend myself. And that's exactly what I did. I became my own lawyer. But you know what? You tell me what I was supposed to do. I'm a black man in America, on my own, going up against the justice system here. How do you think it went down? Was it the best decision? Oh, hell no. But it was a decision and a choice. It was my life. But the only thing I got for it, for defending myself, was the death sentence. I was sentenced to death based on junk forensics. There was no physical evidence. There was no witness to the crime. But yet the state had made me look really guilty. The entire case was based on this bite mark on her body that they said matched mine. Well, that's funny, because you see, I have removable dentures. And they were trying to tell me that I could bite someone like that? Yeah, right. Luckily, by the time I was exonerated in January, bite marks had already been ruled out of the courtroom for years. My case is something like the 28th exoneration in America based on bite mark comparison. I want to give many thanks to the many, many people who were responsible for helping make my dream of freedom a reality. Because without your hard work on my behalf, I would still be condemned and manded to that horrible place that they call the Mississippi Department of Corrections at Parchment Farms on death row, waiting to be executed.
They treat me so meanly, Lord. They treat me so meanly. They treat me so meanly, Lord. I wish I never was born.
I never imagined I would be incarcerated for 38 years for a crime I didn't commit. I'm from Greenville, Louisiana, Jefferson Parish, not far from New Orleans. In February 1980, I had a consensual encounter with a white woman. We had had sex. She asked me for money, but I didn't have any, so later on she accused me of assault. The police dropped the whole thing, but because of all that, the cops had my picture in their files. Before all that, though, in November '79, an owner of an antique store on Whitney Avenue, a white lady, was raped from behind by a black man with a gun to her head when the store was empty. Somehow, while the police were trying to solve that case, my picture wound up in the batch of photos they showed the lady. The police report said she tentatively picked my picture as the person who raped her. So, they put me in a lineup. And of all the people she saw pictures of, I was the only person in the actual lineup. The report then said she made a possible identification, that I was possibly the person. Later on, the detective interviewed the lady, and this time she said she was 98% sure I was the person. That was it. They arrested me. November 5th, 1980, almost a year after the crime, I was found guilty of sexual assault and sentenced to life without parole. My mother bust out crying. My sister cried. My daddy had that look on his face. It was like when I got found guilty, they got found guilty too. Once I was out of their presence, that's when I started crying. What about my 2-year-old son? I had a good life. My life was simple. Nobody ever had any bad thing to say about me. Now my job at the railroad fleet company gone. Fishing, football gone. But I refused to give up. I didn't rape anyone. I'm innocent. And getting mad wasn't going to solve my problem. My mother always used to say, if you want to live a full life, live a life full of love. So I focused on the people I loved. I learned the law. I pursued my freedom. The Innocence Project took my case in 1996. I had been incarcerated for already 15 years. But that's what I count as my true freedom date. The date when someone finally believed me. It took another 16 years, but in 2013, the Innocence Project found hair evidence at the Jefferson Parish Crime Lab for DNA testing. And that's when everyone knew I was innocent. January 30th, 2018, my case was dismissed. I was exonerated. Oh, I remember stepping outside that courthouse, sun shining, breeze blowing, my family there. We ate seafood, fried bread, my mother's recipe. Yep, that's the moment I remember.
To fling my arms wide in some place in the sun, to whirl and to dance till the white day is done, and rest that cool evening beneath a tall tree. One night comes on gently, dark like me.
My mother died while I was in prison. My son was 2 when I left, and now he's 40 with a 20-year-old son, same age as me when I was arrested. I'm almost 60 now. I'm just trying to do everything I can with the life I have left, and do anything I can to leave some kind of legacy behind. The day I was freed felt pretty calm. Didn't jump for joy. Living a lifetime in prison didn't take my spirit away. I knew life was going to be harder now, because the truth of it is, I was incarcerated for 38 years for a crime I didn't commit.
Oh Lord, I want you to help me. Oh Lord, I want you to help me. Help me on my journey. Help me on my way. Oh Lord, I want you to help me.
My name is Tom Keith. I worked for a long time for Mr. J.B. Hawkins on his farm out near Travelers Rest. Mr. Hawkins was an important man, a rich man. He owned 100 acres of land. Folks said I was the old and trusted farm hand for Mr. Hawkins. I worked for him nearly all my life. I had been around so long, Mr. Hawkins let me live inside his house with his big family. That's how much he trusted me. There were 7 kids. I knew them their whole lives. Farm work in August in South Carolina is hard. That August, it was 1899. I was working on the Hawkins farm, just like I always did every day. One night after work, after it got dark, I had a few drinks of homemade whiskey. I think it was a Tuesday. I'm really not sure what happened. But I must have got confused. Maybe it was the heat, too. Very early the next morning, it was still dark. It must have been around 4 in the morning. Something terrible woke me up. Somebody was hitting me on my head. I could see I was on the floor of the kids' room in Mr. Hawkins' house. How'd I end up in that room? Maybe I was just so tired from the work the day before, and the heat was so suffocating. But Mr. Hawkins hit me on the head with his gun. He said I was asleep in the room with his daughter and son. I tried to tell Mr. Hawkins it was an accident. I went to the wrong room, that it must have been the whiskey and the heat. Mr. Hawkins knew me. He trusted me. But when he hit me on the head with his gun, he told me to pack my things and leave town, or else he would kill me. I knew what could happen to me. We knew the stories of what happened when white people accuse us of things we didn't do, when they think we're guilty of something when we're not, no matter how long they knew or trusted us.
Run, sinner, run. Aren't you a hiding place in the morning, oh my Lord? In the morning, oh my Lord. In the morning when my Lord says, hurry.
I ran away from the house. But by the time the sun had come up, Mr. Hawkins had told some of his neighbors. And they set out to find me, and they started chasing me. It was a mob of white men. And I heard dogs. They finally cut up to me somewhere out by Row Ford Road. White men tied me to a tree. They shot me over and over. They dragged my body to the Saluda River and weighed me down with stones. And they threw me in the river. I was lynched that night, August the 16th, 1899.